Alright, so now let's get on to the mode that we are really interested, which is My Notebooks. So if we go to My Notebooks, there's one thing that's very important to mention, and probably most of you already know that, but it's worth noting that Kobo Elipsa has two dedicated notebooks or notebook types. We have a basic notebook, which allows you to write anything, anywhere, and you can change the background types, although something limited, but we'll cover that. And you have an advanced notebook, which is an altogether different beast. It's a notebook that converts handwriting into type, supports adding freeform sections, drawings, diagrams, and equations, and all sorts of things. But it also comes with its own set of limitations. So let's now first check out what are the options and how we can actually manage our notebooks. Well, it's a very simple affair. Everything is pretty much the same here. No, we cannot organize our notebooks into folders. Why? I have no idea. Like, at least give us an option to have collections or folders or something to be able to organize and place our notebooks, because when we end up with having 100 notebooks, and yes, we do end up with having 100 or more notebooks on our devices, then you will need an option to sort and organize these things. So folders or collections are an absolute must. At the moment, we don't have them, and I think that's a huge oversight. Hopefully something that will be corrected. We have a contextual menu, like long press or tapping the dots. It really doesn't matter. You just invoke the same contextual menu, which is basically selecting an item, and you can export the entire notebook, rename it, or delete it. No, it is not a multi-select. So you cannot multi-select different notebooks and export them all at the same time. It's one at a time. And that's pretty much it. There's no other options here. So no, you cannot search notebook content. It can't search the words in the content. And more strangely, you cannot search within an advanced notebook, which has stuff converted to text, which is really, really weird. So that's like a no-brainer. I mean, okay, fine, I get it for this one, the basic one that doesn't have text recognition, but this one, like, that's the whole thing. It just converts everything into text and it does it really well. But not to have an ability to search it, that's a weird thing, and I hope that they add that soon. Now let's jump into a basic notebook and see how that works. All right, let's start by doing a writing example. Generally speaking, I've done as much writing as I can, taking into consideration that I have an injury to my arm, but I have done at least several dozens of pages so far, in different pens and different brushes, different everything. And to be quite honest, I still can't find the one that just works for me. And I feel like a Goldilocks, because either the brush is too thick or too thin, or too unresponsive or too responsive, or blah 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 blah. So I constantly find myself swapping between different brushes and different brush thicknesses and all that kind of stuff, never actually being able to find the option to settle down and say, yeah, this is the one that I prefer. It's really, really difficult, and it took me a while to actually analyze and understand why, because I think there's like several elements. First of all, the latency is there. So this is not a fast screen, as you will see shown on the D.E.S.T.A test, which of course will show why it's not fast. Yes, we have some distance from the tip, but it's calibrated really well, which is a good thing because we do not have an option to calibrate ourselves. But as you can see, it compensates for that distance pretty well, and that's not a problem. So that this one is fine. I wasn't able to measure it simply because there's no ability to add custom templates, so I couldn't use my grid. The surface of Kobo Elipsa is great. It's a nice balance between smooth and rough, and that I think is not a problem. The problem is in the nib itself. It's too hard. If we had a felt tip nib, I absolutely guarantee you that the writing experience would be more precise and it would be nicer. This hard nib just doesn't cut it for me, and it's something that I think is a problem. And again, we're faced with the problem of the active dedicated stylus, and that you cannot use your favorite pen with this device, which I think is a huge shame. So and the standard of the nib is such that no, you cannot use an alternative one. It's its own standard, so you can't just place a replacement nib of a felt type there. So that in itself, the writing feel combined with the speed latency and the hardness of the nib, the clackiness of the nib, the glideness of the surface, the unsophistication of the brushes, not being able to select a brush that actually works properly, and of course the pressure sensitivity is really not that great. I mean, yes, you have 4096 levels of pressure sensitivity, but that's absolutely meaningless if the tool is unable to utilize that precision, and this one most definitely currently isn't. So those things combined just don't offer a writing feel and a writing experience that makes me feel comfortable. Now, these things, most of this stuff can be easily solved. So the most important thing for me is the option of having a slider value for the thickness of the brush, but most importantly is to have a brush that is not pressure sensitive. Currently we do not have that, and the pressure sensitivity is not good, like not good at all. So yet all of the brushes are pressure sensitive, so you never know what you're supposed to do. Are you supposed to press harder or lighter or not? And then you end up thinking about how you write instead of just writing as an action. And yeah, there we go, another accidental press and palm rejection thing not really working that well. So those things combined are not that great. I think this can be massively improved by improving the latency of the written strokes, which is something that we'll talk about in the next section when I talk about the D.E.S.T.A, and by improving the brushes themselves. So primarily, non-pressure sensitive brush and ability to customize your own thickness to your own liking, not just to be stuck with the presets and not being able to actually find the value that you want. Those two things I think can improve it massively, and an alternative one would be a package of soft felt tip nibs that are compatible with this one, so that you can order them and buy a package of 10 because they're probably going to go quickly. And with those things combined, better brushes, better writing latency, and soft writing felt tips, I believe that the writing feel on the Elipsa can be improved several categories over, and then I think it's going to be actually really, really good. At the moment, it's not that good. It's much, much better than like Book P10, for example, but it's still nowhere near Supernote books, any of the books devices, or of course the Remarkable. I mean, it's nowhere near there. Somebody will say, well, yeah, but it's not even supposed to be near those because it doesn't have EMR and Wacom. Well, who cares? Like, why would a customer care if the device has an EMR or a Wacom or a XYZ or whatever? Because you have an oversaturated market and you have contenders. So you have to compete. Now, this is the place where the price of the Kobo is really, really good, but you need to be aware of where are the shortcomings and what actually is what has been cut down or sacrificed for that price to actually go down, and then you can actually make a determination, is this a compromise that I'm willing to go with or not. But what I'm talking about is that even with that compromise, as it is now, I believe that it can be massively improved and much, much better with just those couple of steps that I've mentioned. Then it can be a lot better. So yeah, definitely this is the first time Kobo is doing a writing device. You can feel it, kind of, sort of. And you can see it on the D.E.S.T.A test as well, which is interesting. But yeah, it's definitely something to kind of keep in mind. I really hope that this gets improved because I do see the potential, but at the moment, it wouldn't be my default go-to device for note-taking or extensive note-taking. Just as a whole package, it's just, you know, a bunch of little things that I don't like, and then as an amount, the end experience is not something that I prefer. Alright, so as far as the D.E.S.T.A test results and the screen latency goes, or writing latency goes, the results are not that good, but that's something that you probably have already noticed in the writing example that I've shown. And yeah, not so surprisingly, Kobo Elipsa currently is dead last with 93.72 milliseconds of a refresh rate, which is definitely not good. But that puzzled me because the refresh rate of the screen when you're actually flipping pages and when it refreshes, it's faster than the Note Air. So that part doesn't make too much sense until I analyzed the D.E.S.T.A footage. And when I analyzed it, I noticed something weird, and you're probably noticing it too. It's updating in chunks. So there's a huge amount of time where the screen is doing nothing. It's basically wasting time because, as you can see, a chunk is filled up, drawn in, and then we wait, and then it draws again, and then it waits, and then draws again, and then it waits. That cannot be the processing time because, yeah, it has a quad core and we have single core devices that are processing faster than this. And this test was done in the basic notebook, not in the advanced one, so we don't have that. Advanced processing is completely out of the question. So this is the basic notebook itself. But when I actually looked at it, it kind of rang familiar. Then I compared the footage to a regular e-ink device that has a normal type of performance, for example Nova 3 monochromatic, and you can clearly see the difference, I hope. While the Kobo Elipsa is having those waiting periods, on the Nova 3 Color you do not have it, which indicates to me that the app itself, the notebook app itself, is not optimized for the e-ink display properly. And then I compared the footage with the Lenovo Tab P11 Pro, which actually has faster writing latency than Kobo Elipsa, but even so, when you compare those two back to back, now you actually see the similarities. It looks like the notebook app has been programmed by someone who hasn't taken e-ink refresh modes into account. And by not doing it like that, you're basically throwing away the main advantage that the e-ink or ePaper device has over these devices. With 93 millisecond writing latency, which is admittedly quite bad, but it also shows that there's massive room for improvement. Why? Well, two reasons. The refresh option that I just showed you, it's not using the optimal way. And a second one lies in that little clue that the refresh page, the performance of the screen itself, when it refreshes the page, it's actually faster than the Note Air. So these two combined actually tell me that this device, if programmed correctly and if handled correctly, has the potential to be not as fast as Note Air and these devices, but maybe even potentially faster because of the screen. So currently, I think, or it looks like, that this hasn't been implemented properly and it's not utilizing the benefits of an e-ink or an ePaper display. Hopefully that's something that they will get with the experience, and that they will be able to do something that QuirkLogic Paper has shown that it's possible to do. Because if you remember, QuirkLogic Paper was in the same situation. They were also dead last, and then magically they did an update and they didn't improve it slightly. No, they jumped up all the way to the top, to the second place, right behind Remarkable 2. So while Remarkable 2 is the untouchable one, if you take the Remarkable 2 out of the equation and put it into categories of its own, because rightfully you should, I mean, within the realms of these mortals as far as the writing latency goes, QuirkLogic Paper managed to go from dead last to the top of the list. So that, I believe, is also possible for Kobo Elipsa to do, but it's up to the team to see if they're up to it or not. Right, so here we have the interface of the basic notebook, and when you open it up, you just have a blank notebook with an arrow here, which is a drop-down menu for the options. At the bottom, you have the navigation, which you can just press and navigate. At the top we have our brushes, and we can choose from ballpoint pen, fountain, calligraphy, brush, and highlighter. We have 5 prefixed pen sizes, which are pressure sensitive. They're all pressure sensitive brushes, but seeing how this is neither an EMR or a Wacom stylus, but a digital, an active one, yeah, it's not that great. It's there, but it's, yeah, don't expect wonders. And we also have black and 4 shades of gray to choose from, and they're I guess, and they apply to all of the brushes except the highlighter, which is, you know, just a highlighter. So, oh, you can actually choose the highlighter color as well. So I guess it applies to all of them. The eraser, which can be an object eraser or a brush eraser, pretty standard stuff. Undo, redo, a little bit more of options, which is change page background, which would be a template, for now prefixed for 4 templates only, and no option that I can see of adding custom templates. So you have a grid, line, dot, and blank templates. We have the option to clear the entire page, delete the page from the notebook, refresh page, which is basically refresh the screen. So you can see some ghosting here, and then I can refresh, and then it goes away. That would be nice to actually have it out here. And then you can also export a single page or a full notebook from the notebook itself, which is great. And finally, you also have the hints and tips. The tips that showed first time that you open it up, you can always access them later on from the hints and tips section. And that's pretty much it. Then you also have the back button. This is how you exit your notebook. The cool thing would have been to be able to rename your notebook from here, but you can't. For now, you have to, you know, go out and then rename it there. So that would be a logical thing, to be able to rename your notebook within the notebook itself, but at the moment I think you can't. And you also have this toggle drop-down menu for the menu up and down. And here is the maximum thickness of the brush, and you can see that the performance, so let's choose a ballpoint pen and see here. It's consistently laggy, so not the best performance. And here are the examples of the black and the 4 shades of gray, how it works. However, how the color layering is handled is a little bit problematic. So for example, now I have this black blotch, right? And now I'm using medium gray, that's gray 2. And if I start writing here, seemingly nothing happens, right? But after a while, after it refreshes, after it processes the strokes, then it puts them back on top. So seemingly this really, is weird, but then after it processes, then it shows it. That's not a finished thing. And also, I can't really demonstrate it now, but I have experienced a problem where, if I'm using a darker gray on a lighter gray, it would at some point show fine, and then it would just disappear, and once it disappeared, it never came back. So it's definitely not a consistent thing. It's not something that I can reproduce at the moment, but that's something that happened while I was testing all of this. So definitely you should be aware of this kind of layering issue with the colors on the Kobo Elipsa. Pen button functions are fairly standard, like in everything else. So we have the upper one is the eraser, so I can just erase here, and depending on what I chose, because I chose object erasing, it erased the whole object here. But if I choose to undo and change my eraser to brush eraser, then I can just use it like this, and then it will delete it like that. It's not the most sensitive one of them all, but it does work, but we don't have control over the brush size when we have the eraser there. The other button is the shortcut for a highlighter. So one thing that I haven't tested and I do want to test is, does it work on a highlighter if I change the color and go here? Does it remember the current values of the highlighter? Yes, it does. So basically it's just a shortcut for the highlighter brush, which I think is a really, really cool thing to have. Can it handle over the top? Only after processing. Okay, so the layering problem is always there. All right, so let's check out how does a basic notebook export like, or what are the results that we get when we export the basic notebook. Now, it's possible to export the basic notebook in 3 formats. You can export it as a PDF, you can export it as a zipped collection of PNG, or a zipped collection of JPEG files where you have 1 image per page. So now when I open up the exported PDF, you can see the results here, how they look like. And it definitely has nice processing. It's rasterized. So these are not vectors, they are just kind of baked down. But you can notice a problem here on the right edge, right down there. And if I just zoom in so that you can see, there we go. It's actually cutting out the edges of the screen, which is not something that we have on the device. I mean, definitely I didn't write it like that. So that's a bit of a problem. So some calibration definitely has to get into play. But as you can see, these are not vectors. This is baked down. But even as such, I believe that it has good enough of a resolution that it actually gives good results, and it looks okay, and it looks pretty. The colors transfer well, and they are all perfectly readable, so it actually looks quite okay. So apart from that calibration that it's cut off on the right side, that I think is exporting okay. Now, the JPEGs, they export also well, but it's interesting to see that you do not have that cropping problem on the exported images. So it only appears on a PDF. And the resolution of the exported JPEGs is really more than enough for you to handle, and it's able to interpret the vectors in a good way. So we don't get that gibberishness problem that we had in an exported PDF, exported document notes. And that squiggly lines. We actually have very nice, beautiful, smooth lines for our strokes when they're exported. Now, if we check out the PNGs, they are pretty much exactly the same like the JPEGs, But what I find strange is that one of the whole points of PNG is that it has a transparent background, which hasn't been utilized here. So when I loaded these up into Photoshop, nope, it had a white background, so it didn't have a transparent background at all or anything like that. And furthermore, the template doesn't export either. Maybe that's something that you want, maybe that's not. So definitely not a clear-cut situation. I believe that the template at least should be an option to choose. Do you want to export the template or not? Do you want to bake down the template or not? And also the same thing could be given for the PNGs. Use transparent background or not, so that you know what you can do. Because the opportunities are there, and that the whole point of the PNG format is that. Plus, it's going to be lower in size. So all of those things I think can be improved, but generally speaking, it's okay, but definitely needs some fixing up. Cropping and some more features to actually make it look good, but the core of it, the result, the vectors, the written word is exported very nicely and smoothly, and that's what counts the most as far as I'm concerned. All right, so one of the first things that we need to definitely cover is that in advanced notebooks, you have gesture operations with your pen, which means that you can perform certain actions to modify text. And these gestures apply equally for handwritten and converted text. So the actions that you actually have are, let's just first write out a line and then we'll show the examples. All right, so this is the line that I'm going to be using for gestures. So the first thing is the scribble. So if you just scribble something away, it deletes it. So you can of course undo. Then the second one is you can write a vertical line from up down, so towards down, to add a space to actually divide two words. So in this case I have be using, but I just want it to be using. But it now goes into the new line. So it's not actually to separate them to add a space, it's actually adding a new line. So that's not functioning correctly, and either they need to it doesn't really work every time, and I get to have problems with the eraser when I try to erase something small, as you can see. So now I encounter quite a bit of issues here, but let's try. Now it's doing the processing thing, so let's try again. And at this point, yeah, I can't get it to work anymore. So let's try like this. No, it's ignoring me completely. So the gesture is described that you are supposed to write from down to up, from up to down, but it doesn't exactly separate it doesn't add a space, it actually adds a new line. So let's just erase this and then say be using, since I wasn't able to do that, and then show off. So if I do this, this should now connect the two, but it's not for some reason. So maybe it's not vertical enough. No. So the vertical line is supposed to join, like remove the space. That's what it's supposed to do. So the gestures, there we go. So you need to do it on the end of the word before. Okay, so let's try again if it's repeatable or was it just a one-off. So let's try. So if I add a vertical line at the end, there we go. All right, so let's see, can I do maybe here? Okay, and if I do this, then it's gonna put it back. And if I do it again, okay, so I can actually use it like this. The important thing is you have to be right behind the last letter of the word that you wanna add a space or remove the space from, and I believe that you need to intersect this line for it to interpret it as a command. So in theory, if I do this correctly, behind the E, it added it now without a new line. Very strange, but okay, and now at least it worked. So if I just do this, it didn't do it. So the gestures do work, but I believe that they require some practice so that you work out the nicks and necks. They're not as intuitive out of the box, but I believe with some practice you're definitely going to get the hang of it, and I believe then they become very, very useful. Now the cool thing is that they should be working on converted text as well. So I'm just going to use this larger example here. So I should be able to let's see here, if this is to remove the space, this is to add a space, and this is to delete. Yeah, so all of these simply work. Does underline work? Yes, so you can actually underline and bold things. So let's be okay. So this is my example line, and it boldens it up. So these things I think are super useful, but as I said, it's a good idea to spend a little bit of time to practice where the comfort zone for the gestures is, and I think it's worth it, definitely, because they're super useful. So a little bit finicky, but extremely useful, and really, really worth the trouble to actually learn how to use them properly. All right, so one of the things that's really, really important regarding the advanced notebook, the whole point is that it can convert your handwriting to text. Now, a couple of things that you need to keep in mind is that advanced notebook is for advanced functions. As such, no, you cannot change the background, you only have the lines. The reason why you only have the lines is because they are not ordinary lines. They are used for formatting, for text recognition, for arrangement, alignment, and all sorts of very, very advanced and complex things. So it's very important that you write within the lines, and if you attempt to do something like this, it will tell you, no, you can't. So you need to write within the lines. Now, once you wrote your text, you can see that this is written like normally, like that's how I write. So it's messy and it's relaxed and it's just a normal type of an example, normal size and all this kind of stuff. To convert it, all you need to do, well, first of all, before I convert, a single tap will actually select this as an object, and as an object you can move it around, you can scale it, and you can do all sorts of things with it. Then you tap on the side and you exit. This type of single tap and double tap that we're gonna explore is basically consistent throughout the entire advanced notebook, and you can remember that the single tap is for select, and then you can move it around or scale, right? So resize and move is after the object has been selected, and a double tap is to perform a function. And the function that's going to be performed differentiates on what type of object you are doing, because we have different options. We have text or text boxes, that we have drawings, diagrams, math equations, and free-form sections. So this is like the basic mindset of how an advanced notebook user interface and how do the commands work. So now let's double tap on the text, and it's going to go converting, and it converted it over here. And this is like an advanced notebook that I've already been working on, and this is the text that has been converted. So it says, this is my example for conversion of handwriting to text. So first of all, the conversion worked perfectly, and in most cases, unless I'm really scribbling like a mad person, it's really able to do an amazing job. So that's plus number one. Plus number two, and for me this is a big one, is that the conversion from handwriting to text is offline, it's local, so you do not have to be online to do this, and no, your data is not being sent to a server for conversion and then back and maybe then sent further forward or not, because a lot of people are concerned about that on other platforms. Not on this one. It's all localized, and you can keep it all offline if that's what you desire. So those are two really, really big pluses as far as I'm concerned. The third plus is that all of the gestures that we showed, the scribbling and all of that kind of stuff, that is directly applicable on the converted text. So whether it's handwriting or text, you can use the same type of handwriting gestures or the pen gestures as before to use the editing. Now, once you have the converted text, you can still do the same operations. So in one tap, we'll select it, and then you can move it, let's say, down here, and then I can scale the text box to what I feel. So maybe I want this to be actually a little bit smaller, or maybe like this, and then I can just move it around here or maybe over there. Now, the thing that we are missing are formatting options of the text in these text boxes, which is something that would be, I think, really, really cool. So it would be nice if we could actually adjust the font size in a text box, if we could adjust the justification and alignment of the text. So those three, I think, are kind of the bare minimum that are necessary to make this even more powerful, because right now this is it, this is what you get. Now, you may have noticed that this here conversion is different than this here conversion. So this is something that you can actually do, which is really, really cool, is once you have the conversion here done for the first time, if you double tap on it again, it will do editing, and now it has created a new conversion. So it's now using the same text that there was, but it's now fitting it to the lines. So you can also have it as the lines. And again, single tap, select it, and you can rescale it and then move it around. And as you can see, it fits perfectly on the lines. And again, you can just double tap and it goes back to the small one. Now, the small one is basically to be used for, whatever you want, but as you can see, it hides the line. So it's more of a text box that's on top of everything, and the other double tap version of the larger text is on the lines or part of the notebook text as well. The negative thing is that I do not think that you can go back from handwriting to text back to handwriting again. So the handwriting portion that was used is not stored in the text box itself. So you can go back from converted text back to your handwriting only if you use the undo, otherwise that's it. And one more thing, the eraser, you don't have a highlighter in advanced notebooks, so that's something that you simply don't have, but you do have the eraser function. So the eraser function works normally on the handwritten gestures, so you can just do it like that, but you can also do it on the text, converted text as well. Alright, so those are the basic text recognition and writing options. Now let's check out how does it work when you insert a drawing. Alright, so here's an example of a drawing that I made. I'm testing out the drawing in the advanced notebook. I just wanted to test it out because my suspicion was that this would be too heavy on the device, and I was right. So this was not converted. This is just a drawing with a lot of strokes. And basically what you get is complete destruction of performance because, this is how responsive the writing is now. So I'm fairly certain that that's because of this one. All right, I got a super simple doodle now for a drawing. Performance sucks. I mean, it's still really, really bad. And now I even have this thing happening that I have my previous, you just saw it. So I'm glad I fired up the camera so that you can actually see, because it just disappeared. And it was happening when I was trying to convert this text here. If I would double tap on it, it would just disappear. So let's try again. Performance is hindered. Okay. Still. Okay. So now let's double tap. It should start converting. Okay, now it worked. I'm glad I had my camera running, because this is obviously difficult to reproduce. But then again, there's a problem with formatting, because this is the width, right? Yet he is putting it in 2 lines. I mean, clearly this should be in 1 line. And yeah, occasionally I didn't write anything or anything like that. I just moved the parchment or the notebook page a little bit further down, and then I get processing. And this isn't the first time. Yeah, okay, so maybe I accidentally touched on something, but I doubt it. So it's not the first time that's happened, even on an empty page. The second option that we have and that we can add to the advanced notebook is the diagram. And as you can see, you can draw different shapes like circles, squares, whatever you may choose to do. And first of all, if you let it, it will just kind of fill out the inside of the shape with the color and with an outline of a black. You can also double tap on it to convert it to a geometric shape. You can also add text inside, double tap on it, it will convert it to a text box, align it, resize it. So it's basically a diagram, as it says. It also has the advanced functionality of anchoring. So you can see that these arrows or lines are following an element from one point to another, which is really, really cool. So if you're familiar with how Google Drawings works, for example, this is pretty much the exact same thing, and it's pretty much awesome to have it like that. Now, it's not ideal because this is a pre-release version, so hopefully things will get fixed. But as you can see, some of the arrows are not exactly recognized as you would expect them, but most of the stuff works exactly as I want it to. And for mind mapping, planning, just organizing things in different ways, it's pretty cool. And yeah, with this arrow, for example, so now I can move it and snap it to the new object. And when I release, it will just point to the edge of the object, but this time it moved, right? But since this was the first time that I was using it, I was still learning, and I needed to figure out that you need to move the actual anchor point, which I did there, and then it snaps back. So basically you have the end and the start point of an arrow, and then it just works. So it's pretty sweet. Now, the third option are math equations. And when you insert a math equation, of course, like with any other tool, you will be presented with the hints and tips that will tell you what the tool is for. Now, basically, math equations are not just for numbers and specialized symbols, but also their function is when you double tap it, it will not only convert what you wrote to text, but it will also calculate. So, and it is able to calculate properly complex functions and options. Once you're done with the conversion and you select it, it behaves like any other element. So you can tap, do a single tap to select it, double tap to convert if you want to, and then just move it around and place it where you would like to place it. So now let's add another one here, a little bit more complex, where I'm using a little bit of parentheses and yeah, different types of writing. But yeah, the Kobo Elipsa really doesn't have any problems to interpret what I write, and it just seems so effortless for it to convert what I write into it, and it's just very impressive. So then for the final one, I added something far more complex, such as a square root of a division that has a division within it, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and I wanted to see how can it handle these kinds of things, how can it interpret different styles of symbols, and yeah, all sorts of things. But yeah, it doesn't have a problem at all, because as soon as you double tap, there you go, it just converts it, calculates it, and you're ready to go to reposition it, place it in your advanced document, and you can move on. Pretty cool. the final option that you have to choose from is the freeform diagram. Now, the freeform diagram is basically an area that you can insert into the advanced notebook, which is doesn't have the limitations that the normal lines have. So essentially, you can write anywhere, and you can write anything, and you can draw, and you can do pretty much all of the stuff like that. Now here I was still having an issue of slowdown from the initial drawing. So at some point, this is why you can see that the lag is really severe when the camera is not focusing on my hair. All right, fresh reboot to see if the performance of that advanced notebook is now better, because if it had anything in RAM, it's now cleared. So now it's loading it up. Okay, we have the whole notebook is there. Now we're in the freeform section, and let's see. Yes, so I was able to return it to normal performance after that drawing with many strokes, which definitely hogged it down quite a lot. It was continually bogged down, so a fresh reboot definitely resolves that issue. Is now back to normal, which is very nice to see. So now I can continue testing out all of this stuff. Okay, so this is how you scale it. So the lower one is for scaling. I don't know, how can I scale on the sides? I don't think I can. And the upper little rectangle is for basically, but it doesn't appear every time. There we go. It's for moving, yeah, the actual freeform box. Okay, so that's a little bit weird because it doesn't conform to the rest of the functionalities, how the rest of the stuff works. And let's go to landscape. Yeah, it just converts normally, so that is a good performance. I'm just happy that I was able to get the performance back to normal after the reboot. And now this is a super messy section, and I just want to test out the limitations of the conversion of handwriting to text, because so far it has been absolutely mind-blowing and it works like magic. So let's see here. Writing in landscape mode to test out the refervetting option. I want to add one more line to see how it can handle a bigger body of text. It's absolutely amazing. So, but how do we actually edit this? I can do this, and then maybe just very small formatting, and double tap. Reformatting. So let's try and delete all of this. Reformatting to test out reformatting options. Okay, so let's now do this. There we go. So this is the way that you can actually do that. You can use the gestures and directly do it like this, and then I can double tap and bring it back to small one if I want again. Okay, that's pretty cool. So let's just double check bigger body of text. I like that it automatically scales, but I don't like the fact that the performance seems to fall down as the notebook greens. So let's just double tap here so that I can just see how usable this is. So it's like not greens, but it's actually grows. Some drop off is to be expected, but not this much. Okay, so that was cool. And I can double tap. Okay, cool. Put it back to small. Let's do this. As mentioned, this is a pre-release version of the software, and hopefully the release version will be improved. And then I just want to add a dot at the end. There we go, and then just convert. Yep, it added it, and then go back to there. This definitely works. Now, as I mentioned, you can't convert the text in Freeform, so I'm not gonna attempt that, but let's see here. This is how an advanced notebook performs when there are a lot of elements in it. So it's extremely good as far as the text conversion goes, and yeah, the workflow is really good. I think it's intuitive and it makes a lot of sense to actually do it like this, and I actually prefer to edit text this way than to be able to add a cursor and then type it in. I really prefer this way a lot better. Now, obviously, the severe performance issue is a problem. However, a good thing is that a fresh restart cleared out RAM or whatever it was hogging it, and it was able to continue. So the good side is that it's not an inherent hog or a performance impact when you add an image and when you add elements, that the advanced notebook is not slowing down that much, that it was basically, most likely it was the drawing that I made because it had a lot of strokes. I believe it simply hogged it down and it was unable to clear out the memory, and it remains to be hogged down. That part is obviously a problem, so that needs to be fixed. But the good thing is that, yeah, a software fix just fixes that and then you're done. So again, the core performance is good. Does it have currently a problem? Yes, it does. So be mindful of your drawings. Like, don't go totally bananas with the drawings, or if you do, and if you encounter that slowdown, then you need to restart because apparently nothing else worked. I'm making the video before the official release, so this is a super early version of the OS, and hopefully for all of you watching from the future, you won't be encountering this issue because hopefully by that time it will have been patched. And finally, let's export this and then open it up in the computer. You can access this file by connecting your e-reader to your computer with a USB cable or export to Dropbox. I think I'm gonna export to Dropbox because my computer is not on right now, so I'm just gonna do this. Okay, so you can choose to export as document, text, or HTML. So I'm gonna export as a document and as an HTML and as a text so that we can see what you actually get for all three different formats. Alright, so now we've seen what multitudes of things and functionalities we have in the advanced notebook. And boy oh boy, is it advanced. It really is. I think it's absolutely mind-blowing, but none of it will matter a diddly squat if you can't use it properly further forward. So I've exported it in all formats that I can, so now let's check out what the exported results look like. Alright, so here we go. First, let's check out the results in the document or the MS-Doc file. So here it is. Let's maximize. And as you can see, it is looking mighty fine. I'm especially impressed by the result of the drawings and the sketch. And look at those equations. I mean, everything is looking very nice. So yeah, the formatting is definitely looks like the formatting that we've had on the original one or in there. Now this is interesting. The Freeform section is automatically converted to text, even though you can't do that on the device. So it looks like that everything is converted automatically, whether you want to or not. Yep, auto conversion is done to text of everything when you're exporting to document or MS document format. So let's check out the text. Obviously, this will probably be the same thing because, yep, everything is auto-converted to a text. So, yeah, that all the text is in the text file as well. Now let's check out the HTML. And the HTML opens up normally, looks good. The formatting looks also very nice. And in the HTML, we actually have the handwriting is preserved. So the auto conversion works in document and text file, and in HTML we have the handwriting is preserved. So this is very interesting to see, and I'm very impressed by the results that I can see. This is tremendously useful once some bugs and all some of the things are actually ironed out. But again, we have in this one as well, the core idea and the core functionality is extremely good, versatile, and really, really powerful. One thing that I really love about the advanced notebook is that it's a scrollable parchment, so you don't have pages, and it's basically an infinite document that just simply grows. More content you add it, more it grows. So that's a concept that's really good and very, very productive. All right, so one of the things that I think is really, really important to mention when we're talking about the Kobo environment is the integration with the Dropbox. And unlike in other devices, the Dropbox integration is very, very tight and really well made. It's like an integral part of the device. So it's really worthwhile to check that out and basically have that in mind, because it's basically a synchronization feature and it works completely seamlessly. So here I am on my Dropbox, and as you can see, we are in a folder called apps, and you will automatically have a folder called Rakuten Kobo, and then you have these folders that you can see. So these folders automatically are reflected on the device itself, and when you export, it automatically creates the exported notebooks folder, and everything is sorted there. So these things are really, really useful, and I think this is something that is just properly done, especially when you take into the account that the sync feature, the synchronization feature, automatically synchronizes with the Dropbox. So and when we just rewind back to the reader capabilities, so that everything that you've done in your document, let's say that you've gotten from your Dropbox onto the device, that as soon as you exit the document and the synchronization is done, bam, it's actually done on the Dropbox as well. So you don't need to copy anything or anything like that. You simply are done, you synchronize, and you walk away from the device. And when you go to your Dropbox, that document is marked up and with faulty highlights and all that kind of stuff, but at least it's marked up, and hopefully when it gets fixed, it will be marked up with the correct highlights and correct markups. But still, you get my point. So you don't have to do plug it in. You certainly can. You can still plug it in with a USB-C. If you don't want to do the online thing, you definitely can. You just plug it into the USB-C, appears like a drive, and you just drag and drop and copy. So offline operation is definitely a possibility, but you have to do it manually then. So this is just a really convenient way of doing it, and I really, really like it. Okay, the cover. Well, this I have already covered. I've covered the cover in the unboxing and the first impressions, and my second impressions have not changed. They have simply solidified. While I really do love the build quality and some of the design features, especially the whoop thingy, I really like that, and I love the quality of it. I absolutely hate the color. The color is just awful as far as I'm concerned, and it just doesn't look it's not aesthetically pleasing. It looks like it's sick. The multifunctionality of the cover is nice, and I like that you have magnets and it simply snaps into place, and then it really works as a desk kind of a thing. Plus it has a magnetic thing and a physical thing to hold your pen in place, which is all good. So these are all good things. However, the main thing, which is absolutely horrible, is that the bulkiness and the weight. This thing weighs, hold on, I'm just gonna weigh this thing and see how much it weighs. All right, I weighed it. Are you ready for the result? 348 grams. 348 grams for a cover. Are you freaking kidding me? For a device that is 383 grams. So this cover is almost as heavy as the device itself, and for all intents and purposes, it doubles the weight of the device. This is completely insane. So yeah, to consider this a portable cover is just meaningless to me. It just doesn't make any sense. The only and my judgment remains, which is that the only way this thing makes any sense is as a desktop docking station, so to speak. This can be a station for your Kobo Elipsa that's permanently installed somewhere on your desk, and that's where it stands, and that's where it is when you charge it. That's where you keep your pen, and that's all fine. And I think that it does work as that, only as that. As a portable thing, no, because it's almost twice as thick as the original device, and it's almost twice as heavy as the original device, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's completely bizarre. So yeah, I really wish that we are able soon to purchase Kobo Elipsa without this, because this is going to be quite literally dead weight. Yeah, as soon as you buy it, and considering that the price for the whole bundle is $400, I would much rather be able to pay $350 and not have this thingy that I'm never gonna use, and just get like this really awesome thing for $50 less. Then it makes it an even better deal, because let's face it, this thing, it's a flop. This cover, just no, forget about it. This is a complete miss. A thing that I do like is the ability to actually snap on the pen magnetically on the top of the device. So while no, we can't do it on the side, you can put it on top of the device, and no, it's not super secure. You can just go and it will fall. So that's something that you have to be aware of. So it's definitely not something to use in your purse or whatever it is, backpack or whatever. But for lying on the desk and just storing it there and moving it around, it actually works pretty fine. Plus, I really do like it that you can just read, and then pick up the pen and set it back down. So that's something that I really like how it's done, and it makes far more sense to actually use it like that than to use it in this monstrosity here.